there's not a definite, definitive, this is the time. But when you know that you have a book, and that could be you've already started writing the book, you're a good way through the book, or you know what the whole book looks like. You've kind of set it out. You know what the overall topic is. You know what the chapters are. You know what subjects are going to be in each of the chapters. And you have a really, really good idea. Like you've got a really good visual picture of your book. Um, and then it's not then just plug a publisher out of the air and contact any which one. You want to think about who you're going to approach, and there's all sorts of things that you need to do to go into the thinking behind that. So first of all, it's like, what do you want your book to do in the world? How far do you want it to go out in the world? Are you just happy for it to to be published and then just be out to friends and family, or do you want it to make a bigger impact in the world? And the bigger the impact that you want it to have in the world, the more work you're going to have to do in terms of doing that. And so you might think about different publishers, and there's the traditional publishing houses, there's the hybrid publishing houses, there's the small publishing companies, a bit like mine. They're really tiny publishing companies who tap into the self-publishing toolkits that are out there. So it's thinking about how do you want to get it published. So we're going to just take those in turn, really, and when you should get in touch with them is, and how you get in touch with them is different. So I've published a number of books. I've published one through a traditional publisher, published another one through the self-publishing route, and then the third one that I published, I actually did through my publishing press, which was the book that we published last week or so. And so I'm going to start with the traditional publishing houses. Now, you probably realise that it's really hard to get into a publishing house. What you have to remember with the large publishing houses in particular is they're very, very commercial. They're looking for a commercial proposition, a commercial book. They're looking for people who have got large followings, so that they know that you already have a ready market. And if you're going to approach, and I'm not saying don't, like this is not what I'm saying, like be prepared if you're going to publish if you're going to approach traditional publishers. So do your research first of all. Find out which publishers publish the kind of books that you want to publish, the genre of your book. And they're the ones to approach, and then look on their websites and find out what they want from you. In terms of publishing, in terms of their approaching them, they will all ask for a book proposal, and most of the book proposals are pretty much the same kind of content. But if you don't submit the approach in the way that they ask for, it's going to just get thrown out straight away. So if you approach them with all of the information that you're asking for, you're giving yourself a better chance of getting a yes. So you really have to do a lot of work, spend the time really understanding your book, really explaining your book, the why your book, who is the customer, who's going to read it, what problem does the book solve. And mostly here I'm talking about non-fiction books. For fiction books it's slightly different, because you often need the whole manuscript before you can submit a fiction book to a publisher. So thinking about approaching traditional publishers, you have to put the effort in, and you have to put the effort in really regardless of what you're going to do. One of the things about traditional publishers is that you want to go to them because they take all the hard work out of publishing for you. They take the financial strain. They often give you an advance, which is really nice. Thank you very much. And so they'll do all the formatting, they'll do all the book design, they'll do the work on the getting it out to bookstores and all of that kind of thing. And I think there's a perception that the publishers do all the marketing for you, and that's a bit of a misnomer really, because whether you go to a traditional publisher or whether you publish yourself, the marketing is mostly down to you. The large publishers will do some marketing for you, but they need their publishers to do a lot of work, unless you're one of their top authors. So if you want to go to a traditional publisher, you need to probably start thinking about it sooner rather than later. But be really clear about your book. And if you need help with things like writing the proposals, that's the kind of thing that I can do as well. Like I'm not here just to publish books through my press. I'm here to help people get their book published. The thing about traditional publishers as well is that the timescales and everything is not within your control. Like they will determine when the book's going to be published, and if you were to get a book deal now, it'd probably be 18 months before the book gets actually into the marketplace. So that's the traditional publishers. They're also, or one of the things that they're looking for is large social media followings, large mailing lists, and when they talk about large, they're talking like 40 to 50,000 plus followers. So traditional publishers, for that, there's slightly smaller traditional publishers who they'll ask for the same kind of information, but they maybe won't be looking for such large followings. So that's the traditional. So then if you want to go to a hybrid publisher, they often want you to have the whole book written already. They'll talk to you early doors, but they make their money from the money that they charge you to do all of the work. So the difference between the hybrid publishers and the traditional publishers is that they'll do all the work for you, and you have a bit more say in all of that. But they make their money from you paying rather than the readers of the book paying. And some of them you can approach them whenever you like, really. And again, you're probably best having a really good idea of the overall outline of your book if you haven't got it done already. So I don't think there's much more to say about those. The same thing with the hybrid publishers, though, is that I was at a workshop by Hay House, whose sister company is a hybrid publisher, Balboa Press, and they were talking about the marketing side, and they were very, very, even still, while there are marketing options with any of these, with the hybrid presses, it's still very much reliant on the author at doing most of the marketing themselves. So that brings me down to the small, minute publishers, which are people like me. So I help people to publish their book using everything that's available to you as a self-publisher, but you might be the kind of person who doesn't want to do it, hasn't got the time to do it all, is not very technology savvy. So what I can do is I can either hold your hand as you go through the process, or do a lot of the legwork for you. And the difference between coming to somebody like me and the hybrid publishers and the larger presses is that it's a much more personal service. And you can contact me a bit earlier. You can contact the small presses a little bit earlier. You don't have to have done all of the work like you will have to do if you go into a hybrid publisher or to a traditional publisher. So you don't have to do a fully complete rounded proposal. If I give you an idea about the proposals that I've submitted to publishers, the proposal for my first book, Coaching Presence, which is this side of me, that was 9 A4 pages long. There's a lot of work goes into that. I also submitted a proposal to Hay House for a competition for another book which I've not published yet, and that was over 24 pages long, half of which were samples of the book. So I'm only saying that to give you an indication of the amount of work that's needed to be put into approaching a publisher. If you come to somebody like me, I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to find out how serious you are about publishing your book, and I'll talk it through with you a lot sooner, an earlier level. And whether you publish with me or whether you go to publish elsewhere, that's, it doesn't really matter. And like I said about the traditional publishers, they aim to make their money from book sales. The hybrid publishers make their money from what you pay them to do the work for you. In the same vein, that's how I work as well. Like, I am going to be making charges for the service that I offer, but my aim is to really give you a very personal service, that you're involved in all the decision making all along the way. And the difference as well is that your book can get published a lot sooner. So it was a long answer to a very short question. And I could have just said, get in touch with the publisher sooner rather than later. But I didn't want to do that. That's not how I am. I want to give you a lot more rounded information. I really want to make you know what's involved, but not be frightened of it. Like, don't be frightened of the process at all. It can seem a bit daunting, and it can seem a bit overwhelming and a bit big. But you'll write and you'll publish your book in the same way that we go through life. It's one step at a time. And if you're gonna self-publish or publish through a small press, I'll be the person who'll be there to hold your hand while you go through that one step at a time, and make sure you don't fall into put your feet on too many of the landmines, shall we say. So I think that's all I'm going to say about that. Just to let you know, if you have questions about writing, we're doing a follow-up to the A Different Stories book launch in a couple of weeks' time, towards the end of March, where you'll be able to ask questions about the writing. The book talks about method writing, and so you can ask questions about the writing. Some of the authors will read some of their pieces, or one of their pieces, and you can ask questions about it to do with the writing. If you want to ask different questions to do with writing or to do with publishing your book, I'm offering a free monthly Q&A webinar which people can sign up for, and I'm very happy to take questions and very happy to answer with no obligation whatsoever. So thank you for listening in. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day, and I'll see you again sometime. Okay, thanks very much. Bye.